Thank you. Thanks for sticking around for our post-show Q&A. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Jasmine Naziha Jones. I wrote the play and I played Dali in it.
And I'm Jane, and I'm the literary manager here at the Royal Court. And how we're going to run this post-show is that I'm going to ask a couple of questions, and then I'm going to open up to all of you, and it will last about half an hour, and then my friend Chris is going to wave at us, and then we'll wrap up. So Jasmine,
yes,
I've got a couple of questions for you today, and the first thing I wanted to ask you is, one thing I really love about the play is how fully it trusts the surrealism and the clowning to deliver on the trauma and the violence in the story, and I wondered if that had always been there for you, even when you first imagined the play.
Yeah, I think so. I think that this is such a topic that's really saturated and oversaturated in violence and violent images in the news, and I really wanted to counter-offer the narrative that we're so used to seeing, because I really needed people to listen, and I feel like we've stopped listening, we've stopped losing sleep over these matters, and so it was a counter-offer to try to wake people up, or try to persuade people to maybe feel a little bit of what it's like to experience these circumstances, or be kind of in relation to these circumstances.
So to make us feel something by offering, clowning and like surrealism and this sort of expressionistic.
Yeah, and I also think comedy's so disarming as well. Like it's a Trojan horse, right? You can get away with things being a lot more gory and harsh and shocking if you use laughter as well. And actually, I don't think it's too far. I mean, it was bloody and violent and horrific.
I also wondered if you could tell us a bit about the jinns.
Yes.
And what that form of storytelling means to you, where it comes from for
you.
you.
Yeah. So I wrote this play as a response to A History of Water in the Middle East by Sabrina Mahfouz, which I saw upstairs. And immediately after seeing it, I went home and I wrote the first 10 pages of this play, and it came to me as voices, 3 voices, narration, and I guess that was the way that I could kind of channel and cope with talking about. I needed to talk about myself in a sort of a detached way. So, and they seemed quite distinct, the voices as well, and I thought, well, who are these people? One of them seems wise and learned. One of them seems like a disruptor, the negative voice that we all have in our heads, and the other one seemed more on a plane with myself, more sympathetic to kind of my current self. And I started to research into the mythology, Arab mythology. They definitely felt like spirits. They were in the ether, was kind of, like Dickensian, the ghosts of Christmas past, present, and future as well. But the Arab take on it.
Nice, thank you. Throwing it out to you, does anyone have a question for Jasmine? Yes. So this was but also I'm going to make a small intervention.
Sure.
Which is that I permission not to answer questions about your own autobiography, because I feel like the amazing thing about being a playwright is that you can beautifully wrap pieces of yourself, pieces of characters that have absolutely nothing to do with you, and you don't ever have to draw that line.
Yeah, thank you. What I will say is that my family recognised this as a really important piece of art. Yeah, thank you.
Another question then. What's the difference between a Korean and a jinn?
I'm just going to repeat the question.
Yeah,
sorry.
sure.
Just in case people can't hear at the back. What's the difference between a Korean and a jinn?
So my understanding of Koreans and jinns is that Koreans are spiritual companions from another dimension. They can attach themselves to humans. Jinns can be more unpredictable and disruptive. They can be attached to objects or people. Yeah, and also, you know, there's dramatic license as well. They are what I need them to be in this play, and as they serve as a device, as a chorus, you know, to be the cogent thread that holds all these scenarios together to help tell the story. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, right in the middle.
I just wanted to thank you sincerely for this, because you managed to articulate so well this feeling that I've been carrying around with me for 44 bloody years. And it just, you know, it's not even, it has its own life, and I just, you know, go around living my life normally and pretending it's not there. But it is there, and it's like, I don't know if it's a weight, I don't know if it's a spirit, a haunting element, but you articulated it, and you like took it out as if, and you gave it a voice, and I'm really very grateful. Thank you.
That's amazing, thanks. I don't know.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I'd just like to say as well, thank you. It may bring you comfort to know that you're not the first person to say that, and that was really my hope, was to like reach my sisters and brothers in the diaspora who didn't have anywhere to grieve or didn't have a container for their grief. And I had the exact same reaction when I saw History of Water in the Middle East. I realized there was something inside of me that I had to exorcise. Yeah. It's been a very cathartic process also, writing it, giving a name to the grief and the pain. Thank you so much for sharing that.
But that's quite a recent book, isn't it? So that means you did this in a very brief span of time, no?
But yeah, it was
2020, I think that
Yeah.
show was on.
Yeah.
And then you applied for Introduction to Playwriting and sent those 10 pages that you wrote.
Yeah.
Got on to the playwriting group here at the Royal Court and wrote this play.
Yeah, yeah. And let's not forget we had lockdown as well. I had a lot of time on my hands. This play has been my companion for a couple of years. I've had the luxury of being able to focus on it without many distractions.
Yes.
Do I keep the audience in mind when I'm writing? Was that good? I repeated the question. That's an interesting question. Content-wise, I think it was really important to me to speak from the heart. So I wasn't trying to, I wasn't keeping them in mind when I was trying to get the content down. But yes, I did have them in mind when I was thinking how I would package it and present it and how I would make it entertaining. And that's simply because I am a performer. I think theatrically. So yes, I did think about like the effect that I wanted it to have, what I might want it to look like or sound like or feel like. It was definitely like a 3D experience in my bedroom. Yeah, does that answer your question?
Anyone at the top? Yes.
Was it a very different process performing in something that you'd written yourself?
Yes, it was. Sorry, yeah. Damn.
Was it a very different process performing in something that you've written yourself?
It was a different process. The acting had to come later. I was wearing 2 hats quite a way into the rehearsal process, but I felt very calm about that. I was incredibly well supported by Millie Bhatia, who directed this show, and by the cast. And yeah, they were just sort of challenges that needed to be met that required me to have an awareness that I wouldn't normally have as an actor in the room. But I am also quite an experienced actor as well, so I had faith that that would come. It was also from a ground-up process, because this is playing an 8-year-old. It's a character role. It takes time to brew that kind of character. So yeah, it was different. Usually as an actor, your responsibility is pretty minimal and you can just focus on your character. But I would say that it was way less stressful than I thought it would be. And like, I really have to thank the Fringe for that as well. Like producing short plays, putting on your own work, doing so many other different roles. It gets you really match fit for something like this, yeah.
Yes. So that was a question about ownership and what happens when you try to express something that you have been holding inside you, and that moment of trust where you share it with a wider team of people to make it.
Yeah, I was really lucky with the team that we had. We were just all on the same page, and it was just so exciting to hear their offerings and to have them sort of. There's a term in improv called yes and. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but someone makes an offering and they say, and another person says yes and builds on it, and nobody says no, and it felt very much like that. You know, we just threw a lot of stuff at it, and again, I think the partnership between Millie and myself was really key in that. Like, we really, really trusted each other to give each other space to try things out. I mean, it could have gone badly if people had wanted to make it really radically different. But I think there was a lot of like respect for the work.
A bit more about the scene where the heart is ripped out and the father is suffocated with a pillow.
So my uncle told me about a dream that he had about my Uncle Rudder, who sadly was murdered in the Civil War. And the text is sort of verbatim, really. And I inserted myself into that scenario as a witness to a helpless witness, really, to the horror. I mean, completely incapable of taking that pain away from my dad, and it also really hurt me too. So I guess it was just a metaphor for that, really, symbolic of that helplessness, that frustration, that fury, that pain, that horror. Yeah, that was the best way that I could try to share with you guys how it felt.
Is there a moment where you have to put the material to one side because it feels too close, or where you're making it and you have to, or you feel overwhelmed by the closeness of that material?
Well, for technical reasons, I think it's a great idea to take breaks from your writing just to get perspective. And when there was any pain that came up, I just sort of sat with it and allowed it to flow through me, because I think we have this tendency to try to push it down and do something different, distract ourselves. And actually, there was a real catharsis in writing it, in the play being a container for grief. And like my friend here says, like exorcising it from yourself so that they're not like rattling around in your head like rowdy passengers on the top deck of a night bus, so yeah, I think taking time away for technical reasons, yeah. And then also collaborating with wonderful people like Jane, who give amazing notes and help you kind of gain a different perspective on your work. And yeah, these things are not made in isolation. Like, getting feedback is so important from people you trust.
Have you been to Iraq?
I find this question really interesting because part of me feels like it's a barometer of authenticity to ask somebody if they've been to a country that they're connected to. And I feel like it's really linked to, like, can you speak the language? Yeah. Well, I have a lot of family in Iraq and I have really, really strong ties to the country, yeah. Thank you.
Is there something that, a message that Jasmine would like members of the diaspora or members of the audience more generally to take away and to do?
Yes, there is, yeah. Awareness of the human experience behind the very one-sided story that we are fed by our extremely effective propaganda machine that is UK TV news. Yeah.
What it feels like for this to be your first play on stage at the Royal Court.
I'm so proud of this piece of work. I'm so proud of it, and it's so much bigger than me. I feel like Iraqi people need to have these words witnessed, and they need to hear them out loud. I need to have them witnessed, and I'm just so grateful that the court have given me a platform to express this grief and pain and joy in all the messy truthfulness that it is. Yeah, thank you.
It feels like a brilliant place to end. So thank you so much. Thanks, Jasmine.